Once upon a time, there was a boy named Akira Toriyama, and he had a humble, simple dream. Make $30 billion and become de facto leader of Latin America. He knew this little girl android comedy bullshit was never gonna get him to the top, so he came up with another idea. What if there was this mentally fucked in the head monkey boy who was strong as shit and beat the piss out of everyone he ever met? Just this demented idiot with a heart of gold who loved friendship only second to how much he loved the sounds of bones breaking. A slapstick comedy about a boy with a magic stick that he slaps people with, a bizarre blend of juvenile humor but also blood and boobs that would one day make a lot of headaches for American broadcasters and parents who still weren't sure about this whole Japan thing yet. Dragon Ball is the most popular anime of all time. Undeniable. Sure, maybe my anime list says that Shingeki no Kyojin is the most popular anime ever, but I don't even know what the fuck that is. All I'm saying is if you go up to any 25 to 30 year old guy and say Budokai Tenkaichi, they know what you're talking about. They watch Toonami. I can't point to like a graph or some sort of data, but you know I'm right. Like, can we stop playing here? You might not like it as much as whatever Virgin Beta of the Week you're into today, such as My Senpai from Work is Tiny and Cute, or Reborn as a Vending Machine. Now I've wandered the dungeon. The fuck is wrong with you guys? Just, you know Chowder exists, right? Why aren't you watching Chowder? Dragon Ball might not be Bochi the Rock, but in this house, there's only one The Rock I care about, and his name is Dwayne Johnson, okay? Dragon Ball rocks. It popularized anime around the world, and if you can't see his influence, you're not looking with your damn eyes open. Not everyone gets their own cheap Walmart early 2000s skateboards that make for sick wall art. Yu-Gi-Oh! Also gets it. And Winnie the Pooh. But success is often a double-sided coin as opposed to a single-sided one. When you've got a $30 billion pie like Dragon Ball, people are gonna want a slice whether you authorize it or not. And that usually comes in the form of live-action adaptations. What, am I fucking obsessed? I don't know why these get made so often. I don't. I guess cartoons are still gay or something, so you gotta watch this so people know you're not a weirdo freak. Out of all the cartoons to try and make a live action out of, Dragon Ball is one of the more ambitious and what the fuck are you thinking choices. A world full of high concept sci-fi fantasy is the backdrop for flashy, over-the-top martial arts laser battles with aliens and monsters. It looks hard as hell to draw this, let alone actually do it. But that hasn't stopped 3 different feature-length live-action Dragon Ball movies from being made. 3 people looked God in the face and said, that doesn't seem that hard. And 2 of them looked Toei and Shueisha's legal team in the face and said, I ain't even gonna ask permission. Fuck you, I'm unauthorized, bitch. Dragon Ball Evolution. More like Dragon Ball Poop Evolution, am I right, guys? Dragon Ball Evolution is probably one of the most hated movies ever made.
Yeah, I just watched the live-action Dragon Ball movie. It really feels like this movie spits in your eyes when you watch it.
The new Dragon Ball Evolution movie. What the hell?
I think it's stupid. They make Goku white.
Goku's a teenager. You've never seen Goku as a teenager.
I mean, really, that was the worst. Death to James Wong.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I am going to go see a better movie to get rid of those images I am going to be seeing.
Faces of Death has a higher score on Letterboxd than this, and that's just a death compilation. Dragon Ball fans would literally rather watch real people die and become intimate with the fragility of life than see a movie that kinda sucks and isn't accurate to the source material. This is a good case where all you people might be literally fucking psychopaths.
Death to James Wong.
Dragon Ball Evolution took some, creative risks with the series. Goku went from being Superman who was dropped on his head as a baby, literally, to being a nerdy social dumbass who complains to his grandpa about bullies and girls not liking him.
They push me so far that I want to explode. Yo, I could tear them apart with one hand. Teach me how to get the girl. Teach me how to talk to her without stumbling all over everything I say.
Why? Why is Goku an incel? I can understand where the writers were coming from. You know, they wanted to make Goku more relatable to fans of the series, but functionally in the movie itself, this aspect of Goku's personality is very underutilized. He talks all this big game about being unable to talk to women, which is actually one of Yamcha's character traits just stolen completely. But when he finally does talk to Chi-Chi a few scenes later, yeah, he may be a bit awkward, but he's far from incapable of it. I'm not even totally not on board with Incel Goku. The concept is just crazy enough to work, but they don't take it far enough.
Weaver? A solar eclipse is caused by the moon blocking the sun
There's
from
the
the
girl that I like.
Correct. From the dawn of civilization, superstitions are
Now
long
more
solar
than ever,
eclipses.
she gives me butterflies. It makes my stomach queasy every time she walks by. I know I can be cool if I try.
As for his social isolation, the few scenes we do get of him in school and in normal society do a pretty good job at highlighting why he may be seen as a mentally fucked in the head freak.
What might our ancestors say about the upcoming solar eclipse?
Oh, well, my grandfather would say beware of the Nemeks.
Nemeks?
Yeah, they're an alien race that nearly destroyed Earth over...
They're called Namekians, you fucking idiot!
2,000 years ago.
Didn't you ever watch Dragonballz?
Well, let's hope it doesn't happen again.
I mean, look, everyone knew people in high school who talked like they were anime characters, and they did coincidentally tend to wear this exact Goku hoodie, but theirs was extremely smelly and dirty and unwashed and covered in snot, and they all walked around with their Nintendo Switches and would be cracked at Smash. Literally the only clean thing about those kids would be their combos, because it sure as hell wasn't their Goku Hot Topic blue and orange hoodie. At a certain point, you need to remember that Goku is 18 in this movie, most likely in his senior year of high school. If you're still going off in class about aliens and making yourself look like a complete jackass, you have to know by now. That shit he's probably been made fun of since he was in kindergarten. In some roundabout and backwards way that does make white Goku accurate. Goku is famously extremely ignorant of simple concepts, mainly because he lived in the woods alone for years and didn't meet anyone besides his grandpa until he was 12. White Goku has no excuse though, he's just homegrown stupid. But he has the benefit of being fairly attractive, so I'm not sure how he doesn't get pussy. Just join the school martial arts club. They probably have like some sort of karate or some sort of sanctioned fight club. Or fuck it, just start a fight club. Everyone already thinks he's schizophrenic anyway. Hell, with looks like that, he could even be an actor with a long and successful career, assuming he picks the right projects. I mean, the amount people hate him in this school, it's like, what did they do? What did they, did they catch him beating off in math class, or beating off in English class, or beating off in science class, or beating off in history, or beating off in... They literally just turn Goku into Peter Parker. He's awkward, but also like wisecracking and goofy, and he even has a superpowered fight scene where he avoids fighting bullies, but makes them hit each other by dodging their attacks. In my headcanon, this guy's actually Dende. I can never fully hate this movie because that hair slide is just way too clean. And of course then his elderly not father but father figure dies and he has to learn how to use his power to do epic shit. In Spider-Man that means killing his friend's dad because he doesn't like being the only one with no dad, but in Dragon Ball Evolution that means avenging his grandpa's death and defeating Piccolo before he can use Dragonballs to do dastardly things. Yeah, Piccolo is the villain. If you haven't figured it out yet, this movie is an adaptation of this, not Z. A decision that's technically smart because the beginning is obviously when the series was at its most simple. But also it's kinda dumb because Dragon Ball was never super popular in America. Dragon Ball Z was popular in America. I'm sure a lot of people watched this movie and were just genuinely confused why Piccolo was a villain, where Vegeta, Krillin, Frieza, Gohan, and Tien all were, Yamcha being even kinda useful, the existence of Mai, Chi-Chi having martial arts abilities, and most of all, the lack of Turtle and Oolong. That guy I showed earlier from 14 years ago who said, "We've never seen Goku as a teenager," probably straight up actually had no idea about the entire series where Goku was a teenager for almost the whole thing. Americans, especially in 2009, barely knew what the hell this even was. But even as an adaptation of the first arc, it's really not that faithful. However, that's not actually that unusual for a Dragon Ball movie. Basically, none of these official and beloved films fit into the timeline at all. Fusion Reborn takes place at a point in time where both Goku and Vegeta are dead, and Trunks and Goten can do the fusion dance, meaning it must happen squarely in the middle of the Majin Buu arc. So yeah, King Piccolo instead of Pilaf, not really that big of a deal when you look at what other Dragon Ball movies have gotten away with. The bigger issue with this movie and their adaptation of the first arc is the way it just doesn't feel like an adventure. You don't get that same sense of fun and excitement here as you do with the original series, you know, Goku and Bulma traveling around the world doing crazy shit and meeting new friends who go on to become iconic characters like Pig Rapist, Regular Rapist, Violent Incel, Turtle. But despite everything, I think I need to get something off my chest. I think this movie is actually kind of fun. Fuck. Look. It's not a great movie. It's barely even good. However, as a lifelong Dragon Ball fan, I fucking love this shit. It's hilarious. Like, holy shit, man. How did you do this? It's literally made by people who weren't fans of Dragon Ball and did not care at all. Then again, they knew that Yamcha lived in the desert and was abandoned, and that's more than most DBZ fans, so I guess give them a point for that. But also Puar isn't in it, so take away like 50 points. But still, that never happened in Dragon Ball, so F minus, you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir! Fuck you. But seriously, folks, how blasphemous is this movie really? It got the name right, the Mafuba is in it, the Kamehameha is in it, Bulma has one strand of blue hair, that's kinda like when she had thousands of them. The action sucks, which rocks. Dragon Ball is probably the most popular martial arts anything ever made, and the hand-to-hand combat in this movie ranges from like fine to just bad, especially from Goku, who is supposed to be like the best at it, which makes this movie funny. To me at least. It also helps that this is only like 89 minutes long, and remember, like 15 minutes of that are just credits, so really it's like 75 minutes long. I guess I just get some sort of sick, twisted joy out of this movie. It's one of those relics from a time where making the fans happy wasn't even a thought in a single person's head. This movie wasn't for the fans, it was for everyone else, and the fans can get fucked and shoved in a locker. They'd never be happy anyway. They think fulfillment comes from arguing about whether Gear 5 or Super Saiyan is better. Why don't you buy a fucking bicycle and put that in Gear 5? That's my one piece of advice. Yeah, don't get cocky, your shitty live action is coming up soon too. My point is, you ask any Dragon Ball fan up the street what parts of the series they consider good, and they'd have some convoluted rant prepared about how it's gotta be the Japanese versions, but only the ones from the specific DVD box set release, but you gotta skip these filler episodes, but sometimes it's actually better if you don't skip the filler, but technically it is filler and not the original vision, but Kai is unwatchable even though it's more manga accurate, but also Kai sucks because look at these redrawn frames, like Jesus Christ, what the fuck, they even try to make it look like it fit in the scene, these are so bad, what the fuck, and plus the Buu Saga sucks, and GT sucks, and Super sucks, but Super Broly and Super Hero were good, but also those movies suck, not as good as Z Broly, but Z Broly isn't canon and also sucks, but also, I grew up with the Falconer score, so to watch Z, you need to download a 100GB fan edit from the dark web that keeps roughly 1/3 of the filler that I specifically like and mixes the Japanese dub with the American soundtrack, except for sometimes when I think the Japanese soundtrack is better, and only a very particular amount of grain is good, and the colors have to be just right, because a lot of DVD releases have colors wrong, like everyone looks way too pink and they force the entire series into widescreen. Point is, Dragon Ball fans hate like 75 to 92% of the series, and most of them haven't even watched it. One shitty live action isn't that big of a slap in the face as you think it is. Dragon Ball. Son Goku fights, Son Goku wins. Oh, now we're really getting into the shit. Did anyone else, like, almost totally forget that there were two other movies to talk about? This is the first of two unauthorized films to come out of Asia in the 1990s. This one coming from South Korea and actually stars a child actor named Hyo Sung-tae who would one day go on to be in Squid Game. I genuinely no shit thought people were talking about Splatoon the first week that show was popular. Just like Evolution, Dragon Ball Korea, as I'm gonna call it because fuck that name, is also adapting the beginning of the original series, so meet Bulma, collect Dragonballs, Yamcha is there, and Puar this time too. Master Roshi, Chi-Chi, fight someone, bada bing, bada boom, I'm retiring to my tomb. Out of all three, this one is by far the most manga accurate to the source material, going so far as to actually just use animation from the anime, use a Puar puppet as Puar, and Oolong wears a giant mask of his main series counterpart. Also, at one point, Goku turns on a TV, sees an episode of Dragon Ball, and says, "Whoa, he's literally me!" And then Bulma is just like, yeah, it's a popular TV series, and maybe I'm reading too much into a joke, but now I'm just thinking about how these characters are just by pure coincidence going on an almost beat for beat the exact same adventure as the TV show they just watched. And like maybe in this world, Dragon Ball is one of the more grounded and realistic shows. It's just like a slice of life here. Oh yeah, beat for beat reminds me of something. They do everything. There's a lot of stuff early on that I absolutely do not stand by. It's mainly this stuff. I don't like seeing it when it's just drawings. I especially don't want to see a real child actually do the infamous "where's her ball" scene. The worst offender by far, with an emphasis on offender, is when they do this bath scene, which I don't even know how to talk about. In the movie, it is censored. Should have used a much bigger censor. And we don't see anything, but that doesn't change how creepy and grimy this scene is. Especially considering that on set there was no censor, that just happened. I hate that this scene exists, I hate that they did this, and the movie's infinitely worse than Evolution for containing this scene. Moving on from the worst thing I've ever seen. Unlike the other two, this one keeps Emperor Pilaf as the main villain. Look at this freak. Don't you just want to like tie rocks to his legs and throw him out of an airplane so he hits the ground even faster than normal? That's good shit right there. Oh yeah, same with this turtle. I don't claim to be an expert in puppets. As far as I'm concerned, Kermit the Frog is a real guy, but I don't even understand how this turtle looks. Like he looks like too real. It's uncanny, it's uncomfortable, and I just want every weapon we have to fire on that turtle. But what's the actual movie like? This movie is surprisingly low energy. I mean, you gotta go into this understanding that it is a low-budget, unauthorized, illegal movie trying to adapt one of the craziest, most apeshit series ever. And when they have action, it's not that bad. It's also not that good. It's when they're not having action, which is so much of the movie. The special effects aren't bad considering they made this film on a budget of a dead cricket and some stale chips. They got real explosions and pyrotechnics, the costumes are good, they got nice laser beams coming out of the hands. Why is everyone doing a Kamehameha? I'm really not sure how they did these flying Nimbus scenes. Like, did they just make this kid stand on a go-kart outfitted to look like a cloud, and then attach that to a crane with him standing on it? Probably not safe at all, but who the fuck am I, their mother? I approve. Like many cheap movies, a lot of it takes place in dirt lots in the forest, but at least here we have a little boy flying attached to a rope fighting a transformer for some fucking reason. And they're at least detonating live explosives really close to them, so, you know, I can't complain too much. They risked their lives to do this movie. Or at least they risked this child's life to make this movie. And I gotta commend that. Overall, if there were perhaps a fan edit that made me more comfortable to have this movie download on my hard drive, I can see myself recommending this, at least as an interesting, obscure piece of Dragon Ball history. As it stands now, though, with those particular scenes in the film, I can't really recommend this at all. We gotta stay steadfast on rolling up the petties, and for that bath scene alone, I feel like director Ryong Wang has gotta be rolled up too. We can't be having him do that foolishness. It's cheap and corny, but that's what early Dragon Ball was. This era of Dragon Ball being an early 90s cheap martial arts comedy actually really works. They just weren't the best ones to do it. Dragon Ball, the magic begins. Oh fuck yeah, boys. This is the shit I like. Remember a few seconds ago when I said, this era of Dragon Ball being an early 90s cheap martial arts comedy actually really works. They just weren't the best ones to do it. Well, these guys absolutely killed it! The magic begins is once again a retelling of the time Goku joined up with Bulma, Oolong, Yamcha, and Roshi to collect the Dragon Balls and save the world before a wacky villain can use them to rule the world, just like the last two. Although this is a very loose live-action remake of the Dragon Ball movie Curse of the Blood Rubies. Not at all one-to-one, but shares more similarities to that one than the main series or any other movie. This one comes from Taiwan, and goddamn did these guys know where to put the most focus. Making it fun. In the first 10 minutes, we get told a few things. What the plot is, evil guy wants the Dragon Pearls, but also that these filmmakers meant business. They had the resources to make this a surprisingly large production for how little faith I have that changing Dragon Ball to Dragon Pearl kept them out of court, especially when it still says Dragon Ball on the cover. I mean, look at this. Look at how many extras that is. And again, real explosions. They blew up a real village to make this movie. I bet people had lived there for hundreds of generations, all to have it blown to smithereens to make Dragon Ball: The Magic Begins. A worthy sacrifice. But then we meet Monkey Boy and his grandpa Sparkle, and they have this ridiculous over-the-top battle that, sorry to use this phrase, but they really understood the assignment. Yes, queen, fingernails emoji. He's beating the fuck out of wild animals. We are so back. Unfortunately, the entire movie isn't able to keep up quite as high energy as that, but overall, this one is by far the best live-action Dragon Ball movie. Look at these Power Rangers-ass villain designs. Look at these flips and this fighting. Look at that cinematography. This is exactly what you want out of a cheesy kung fu comedy. It's low budget and corny enough to laugh at and not take too seriously, but it's still competently made enough for you to not be bored and still be impressed with what they were able to accomplish. Look at my boy Westwood. He's fly as fuck. That outfit's swag as hell. Yamcha? Who the fuck is Yamcha? This guy is a totally original character, and he's got the desperado-ass cowboy poncho and hat with the machine gun, and he throws that shit off and says, "Let's get serious," and reveals he's got this Hindu prince and bedazzled sword. Okay. And of course, the fight he has with Monkey Boy is hard as hell too. These actors really knew what they're doing. That's some real deal don't tell mom ass fight choreography. Way up high in this big ass structure, jumping over sword swings. This looks dangerous as hell and I love it. They got him on wires on the side of the building. Probably the biggest complaint I have with this movie is that we spend like 35 minutes at, hold on, let me check this original character's name. Turtle Man's house. It's just way too fucking long. The movie really drags here, so thank God the villains blow that shit up eventually. This section of the movie isn't all bad, but if you're not a fan of Turtle Man hijinks, i.e. him trying to fuck Sato, Bulma.
Here's a peek at your supper boobies.
Turtle Man continues to be in the movie, of course, but now the rest of it is just non-stop explosions, martial arts, and gunfights as Pearl Team 6 tries to take back the village from the opening of the movie. This is, in my opinion, the best live-action Dragon Ball movie we've ever gotten, and likely ever will. The thing about making a live-action anime movie is you're going to look really stupid, because what you're doing is really stupid. I mean, look, it's totally possible someone out there could adapt something like the Saiyan Saga to live-action and it'd be good. I just feel like opting to take the comedy route and tackle a more lighthearted era of the series is a better bet, especially when you don't have all the money in the world to do crazy ass beam struggles and transformations. Early series Dragon Ball is downright silly, and a movie like this actually fits that tone super well. You can get away with not being the most realistic and serious looking production, and having more cheap special effects and corny acting because the story doesn't really demand too much more. Dragon Ball: The Magic Begins is pretty good. I actually recommend it. Both of these unauthorized movies are on YouTube. Not really sure how, but personally I recommend the version of Magic Begins that is on archive.org, since a lot of these YouTube uploads either cut out Turtle Man's dance, which is very important to the story, or the audio gets out of sync about 53 minutes in and stays out of sync for the rest of the movie. And in that way, it's a pretty accurate Dragon Ball experience. Needlessly complicated to watch, it's like Toei themselves published it. All three of these movies were technically made with no involvement from Akira Toriyama, but two were made by literal renegade filmmakers putting their entire lives on the line, and also the small child that put his life on an actual line too. I'm not the biggest fan of Dragon Ball Korea, as I keep mentioning, but it still had a lot of heart and soul in it. Maybe not the most interesting cinematography or the highest energy, but they definitely gave a shit. I just disagree with their level of committing to adapting some of the things they chose to adapt and how uncomfortable I am with that stuff. Plus it's long, like almost 2 hours long, and it really feels like it. And as for Evolution, look guys, yeah, it sucks. It sucks so much Akira Toriyama came out of retirement and restarted the franchise because he hated the movie so much. The studio big-leagued him and shut him out of the writing and development, so it's hard to make an argument that this isn't the worst one. But honestly, I think I would still choose to watch Evolution again before DB Korea. Not just for the scenes I don't like, but because DBK is way longer and way less visually interesting. I know, he fights a Transformer, but Evolution is so much shorter, and I just find nerdy social dumbass Goku to be a much funnier and more interesting concept than anything in DBK. The Magic Begins beats both of them though. Goodbye, everybody!
Let's get some pussy tonight.